Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome. My name is Sarita. I promised you a Halloween Kringle review today of two candles that I have been burning from their recent Halloween collection. It was actually the Spellbound collection. I bought two from that Spellbound, one of which is Spirit's Call and the other one is Guardian's Vigil. I'm done with Guardian's Vigil, but Spirit's Call is still kind of taking some time. These were huge ass tumblers. So I could have done the review, but I really don't love doing a review unless I've burned a candle all the way down or until I can burn no longer. So I'm not going to do it. It'll be a little bit after. It'll be in November sometime. Neither candle is particularly Halloween spooky necessarily. Spirit's Call is definitely the closest to being spooky because it's got a very funky, like vetiver patchouli kind of note in it, up against some very odd varieties of wood that make it, like, frankly, not a very pleasant candle. But I don't know if unpleasant necessarily equates to spooky or Halloween, although in some minds, yes. If it's a gross candle, like, it's perfect for Halloween. And it's definitely a cool weather kind of bonfire like candle. I should basically just do the review now. Anyway, both of them, I think Kringle has them at either 50 or 60% off, but I suspect after Halloween this Thursday, they may be clearanced off further, and I think by Christmas time, you should definitely be able to get them at a very good price point, but I think they're still available. So I'm not going to stress out too much about not having those reviews for you today, but in its place, I did literally just finish another candle by Kringle that I'm happy to review for you in lieu of those two. And literally it just extinguished itself. It's still kind of wet and is solidifying. Yes, the wax did migrate quite a bit in the final like burn, but weren't problematic up to that point necessarily. This candle is Bourbon Apple and Oud, and I got it in this 3-wick situation. I bought this. I did not even bother with a wax melt before I bought it. And I waited a good long time after. This is a brand new candle, by the way, for the fall. Oh, by the way, look at these nails. Do you love these nails? I love these nails. I just did these nails this morning because I needed a break. I'm going to go in late for work. I worked like 12 hours yesterday, so I'm going to take my time this morning. I need some Halloween nails. And yeah, I was going to do the top coat on them, but I don't think I am. They're kind of textured, and I like the way they shimmer, and they are kind of scratchy and are sticking to everything, but I'm going to go with it. So yeah. By the way, I use dip powder. I do it myself. And this is the company Sparkle and Company, Sparkle and Co. And I think the shade is Posh Plum Fierce, for those of you who care at all. All right, so Bourbon Apple and Oud. So as per an earlier video where I explained my new policy on Kringle candles, I am just not buying full price Kringle candles going forward. I am not. Indefinitely, that policy is going to stand until I have more confidence in the company and in the candles being offered. And it's an unfortunate policy change, but it's one that I personally, as a consumer, am going to have to start sticking to. I think that the 100% soy is not a good situation. I know that I have beat this drum a lot, but I've become more and more convinced over the last 2 years that it's a very problematic wax formula and just doesn't give the fragrance payoff that I think we all want as serious candle buyers. And for the price point and for the fact that you're buying them blind, I cannot do it at full price. I can't. And I'm not even saying that there aren't some candles in there even now that could be bought at full price that are as good as full price, but I don't know what they are. And at this point, it's kind of like playing Russian roulette with the candles. So I am not buying them full price or with a 15% off brand ambassador situation. So I did wait when the fall release came out in like what, June? I did wait for a good long time, and then they had an amazing 3-week sale and included all of the new fall ones, and I was like, done. I will get a couple 3-wicks, because if they have an excellent sale of any kind, I will for sure log on to the website and see what's going on and what I might want to buy. But it's got to be a pretty steep discount, and it was on these designer 3-wicks. They're calling them designer. I don't know if they're quite as premium as that. I do have to say, by the way, this one was stunning when it was burned. It doesn't look like a whole lot just like this and on the website, but it shows light through it in a gorgeous way. And the design on the walls, it was like a luminary. It just looked stunning. Simple but effective. So, and I wish I had gotten a shot of it burning, because it was really, really beautiful. So yes, there was a big 3-wick sale, and there were 2 in the collection that, from what the brand ambassador said, I was fairly confident with, and also like knowing what scent notes I prefer. And so I went ahead and just got those blind in, I think they were like $10, and I'm like, please, yes, or 12 or something like that, you know? So I ended up getting this one, and gosh, I cannot remember. I think it's called Warm and Toasty. Kringle has a lot of candle names like that. I know there's a Warm and Cozy. I think this one is Warm and Toasty. And the brand ambassadors all said that it was like an upscale version of Marshmallow Fireside from Bath & Body Works, only it was better than Bath & Body Works one. So I was really curious about that. And it was apparently very strong on the wood, but man, when I got it, I thought it was one of the most revolting candles I had smelled, at least on cold. Now, I have not burned that candle yet, and I probably will for November, but so I hope and I trust that it improves upon being burned, but it was a hard no for me. If I had smelled that candle beforehand, there's no way I would have purchased it. This one I was relatively happy with on cold, and I have now burned it now. I have revealed, and actually, frankly, I have just in a self-conscious way come to the realization very recently that I'm not a huge apple fan in terms of apple fragrances or juicy apple candles at any time in the year, I guess. But even in September, as I showed in my like Hall of Fame fall candles, I much prefer apple taking a back seat to like honey or amber or vetiver or something like that, or booze. I could do some alcohol. I can do a lot of alcohol. And I generally like the fall stone fruits a bit better than the apple. So plum, for instance, I think is a fantastic fall fragrance note. I like the darker berries. Yeah. So in that sense, even though apple, I would look for apple candles, and just like everybody else, they're very seasonal for early fall. I can't think of too many that I really want to burn. And guys, I have a black band Macintosh apple from Yankee Candle. Like, I am aware of these apple candles that have been like in the vanguard for the industry for a very long time. So I just don't love them. I kind of feel as though I burn them as if they're a duty, but I'm to that place now in my life and in my candle trajectory where it's like, you know what? If you don't enjoy it, you don't need to burn it. There's not like the candle police that are going to come after you and be like, no, you can't burn that. And by the way, that goes for all of you too who do not burn candles seasonally. Like, you do in your house what you want to do. Nobody should be able to stop you. If you want to burn something that's extremely unseasonal, do that. It's your candle, it's your life, it's your house. You know what I mean? All right, so that preamble over. I have found that I do love an apple conceptual, or at least theoretically. I like conceptuals, like I said, mix it with a little bit of vetiver, wood, always a great option. Maybe smoke, I don't know, maybe amber, definitely musk. I can always go in for some musk as long as it's not overwhelming, as long as it's authentic, and as long as it's not paired with a bergamot note that makes it a very cliched men's cologne profile. Yeah? So I did burn, and I reviewed a few weeks ago the Bath & Body Works Radiant Red Maple Candle, which I thought I was not going to like once I smelled it for the first time because it's just so sweet. I mean, all the notes in that candle are seen through a marshmallow haze. It's got a marshmallow haze, and then you can kind of pick up on some fruity elements, maybe some very vague nuance of like wood or cedar or something like that. I have to say though, as I burned it, I enjoyed it more, and I wouldn't mind purchasing it again, but the long and short of it is that the strength and throw on it was just terrible. And apparently the year before that they brought it out as one of their vault, back from the vault kind of like candle drops, it performed badly too. So I'm kind of scratching my head as to why they've done 2 years in a row of a bad performer. I've said this of Bath & Body Works. You usually don't get 2 years in a row of terrible performance on a candle or on a fragrance. They're very savvy, and I don't know if it's intentional or not, but if they phone it in 1 year with a fragrance, pumpkin carving is terrible this year, or something like that, the next year it's going to be better. They almost never do 2 years in a row of just horrendous. And I am, like I said, scratching my head a little bit as to why Radiant Red Maple, especially when it was hyped, has come out now 2 years in a row and not performed. Mainly just strength and throw issues. It didn't burn all that badly, if I recall. It got some small wicks. It didn't go full puny, but yeah, it was like at a 3, and it needed to be at least a 6. Like at least double the amount. And I really think that fragrance could be even higher than that. It could be in the 7.5 range. And I think at that range, it would be a really beautiful candle. A little on the sweet side. This is another candle that I've been burning, and friends, I really like it. And at first I did not. So I have to be honest, the first 2 burns of this candle were not good. Really not good. By the way, I should just mention what the notes on these are. They're phoned in Kringle notes. So top notes, apple and wood. We don't know what apple, we don't know what wood. Mid notes, bourbon, comma, sweet. Sweet. I don't understand who's writing these notes. I don't. It takes very little effort to just invert that order. Just call it sweet bourbon. Just call it sweet bourbon. Doesn't need to be bourbon, comma, sweet. It just looks janky and like very incompetent, right? Sweet bourbon. Classy, short, to the point, could be more descriptive, but that's just really nice. Now you include that it's sweet and that it's bourbon, okay? Bath & Body Works is a master at this. It doesn't matter if that fragrance note goes with the other. If you can pair an adjective or a quality with another note that's in it, like the consumer gets the message. It's a sweeter candle and it's a bourbon candle, right? I'm sorry for that. Base notes, tonka and amber. So like I said, super phoned in. There is no booze in this candle at all. I was hoping for a good bourbon note, and unfortunately there isn't. And I think a good bourbon note would go amazing in this candle up against the wood and the apple, the tonka and the amber. All of those notes should just marry beautifully, and if they're executed correctly, should be a really fantastic candle. Unfortunately, this candle was kind of firing. It was half firing, so it doesn't really have any bourbon note at all. It is sweet. It's relatively sweet, but frankly, the tonka and amber here, which if it's tonka and amber, are coming across just musky. So it's a lower amber, although they might have a higher amber as well, because it does glow and it is warm. There's no question. There's a warmth to this and a sweetness to this, not unlike the Radiant Red Maple from Bath & Body Works. Not as sweet. We don't have a marshmallow haze in this candle at all. And so that's where the major difference between the two is going to be. And I don't have the empty here. I don't have another Radiant Red Maple to like compare it on camera. So it's definitely less sweet. And the wood and musk notes, I think, are coming out far more than they do in like Radiant Red Maple, for instance. So Radiant Red Maple is shifted higher in the range, and like I said, like Marshmallow Central, whereas this candle sits lower in the range, dispenses with the Marshmallow Haze, if you will, and just kind of gives you the wood, the musk, and this like fruity apple on top. It's not a bad apple. It's not a great apple. It's an apple amber. So again, it's not, I don't think it's a candle. I don't think it's an apple candle in that it's giving you like an authentic botanical, juicy apple experience. It's not like that in the same way that that's not what Radiant Red Maple does. You know what I mean? It's not a juicy red apple fragrance, although to put it in Ken's words, there is a juicy aspect to the fragrance, if you know what I mean. If you know, right? It's a juicy fragrance, but not necessarily a juicy apple, you see? And that's the exact same apple that is here. It's actually a very similar kind of apple note that you would get from Radiant Red Maple. It's a vague apple fruitiness without it being like uber juicy or frankly even the center of attention. It's just kind of the fruity sweet element in what is otherwise kind of a fall conceptual candle. And I really like it. And I can get behind this kind of an apple inclusion. I appreciated the candle. So in terms of the burn experience, which was not great, so I would say at least 2 top burns. These were the very 2 first burns of the candle were terrible. And by terrible, I don't mean performance-wise, but the first layer of wax was just, man, it was bad. It was bad. I was getting very little of the actual fragrance itself, and instead what was coming off was like a plastic, like chemical smell, actually. It was a strong chemical smell, and it didn't have great strength and throw either. So I put it in the guest bathroom finally on the second burn. I put it in the guest bathroom so I could smell it, and it was like, yeah, just chemicals. At the 4 that it's coming at, it's on a scale from 1 to 10, it's a 4 of chemicals. Like, I don't know what's going on here. This review was writing itself, as I like to say, right? Then once I cleared those first 2 burns, it never went back to that chemical plastic note. So that was really good. It was just kind of it must have been a corruption of the top layer for whatever reasons. And I don't know if it was wick related or whatever else. Then those subsequent burns, it was just a really sweet, nice fragrance. Again, guest bathroom. As in, on a scale from 1 to 10, it was in the 2, 3, or 4 category, depending. And that's in a tiny guest bathroom. But at least I wasn't getting the chemicals. I was getting like a beautiful, apple, wood, musk kind of candle and amberfied. It was nice. It was nice. It was pleasant. Then I got to about a midway point, or it was kind of like a midway point from there to the 1/3 mark left, that it came into its own and started throwing. And I was getting some better volume from it. So much volume, in fact, that I took it back to the back bedroom. Don't get me wrong, this candle never graduated up into the open concept space. But I did put it in the back bedroom, and it relatively filled that space. And by relatively, I mean in the 5 range. Maybe even a 5.5. Maybe one of those burns got up to a 6 in the back bedroom with the doors closed. You know what I mean? And it smelled beautiful and lovely. Now, at about this point, it also developed puny wicks for about 3 burns. Puny, 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 puny. Okay. I thought it wasn't going to recover. Then it recovered. And once again started burning super high, super happy, right? And once again, I got that amazing fragrance that, like I said, is kind of a mid-range apple, wood, amber, musk conceptual, and it was really beautiful. And that's when I started really liking it. And I was like, my gosh, if it performed like this throughout, I would repurchase it. And frankly, I'd be interested in buying the tumbler version. So here's what the tumbler version looks like. It's obviously a different aesthetic. I tend to like the tumblers better than the 3 wicks. they're obviously at this stage in the game not as good in strength and throw as the 3 wicks are, but I think the aesthetic is nicer, and there's something so beautifully and quintessentially Kringle about this tumbler silhouette. So all things being equal, I would love to repurchase it in that format, but I would be nervous about doing so. I would say at the end of the year, if especially the mediums, if the medium tumblers go on a major sale, I would buy another Bourbon Apple Oud. I would. And it probably won't perform, especially with one less wick, but I loved the fragrance that much, to be honest. Another candle from Bath & Body Works that I think it's similar to, but then when I pulled it out of my storage and smelled it, they're not that similar. I think that Radiant Red Maple is more similar to it than this one, but at least conceptually, it's very similar. So this one is, sorry my candle isn't, or my camera isn't focusing. Oh, look at my nails being on that candle. It's like it was planned. This is Birchwood Orchard. It came out last year in this package, and then with the much maligned cocoa roasted chestnuts. It's just hyphenated. The much maligned cocoa roasted chestnuts, right? Same package. Also, there was like a winter pear, which wasn't that great. And there was something else. Was it the Citrus Grove one? Citrus Grove one wasn't good either. What was good was Goldenberry Mistletoe. Goldenberry Mistletoe was a sleeper last year that outperformed, not only outperformed its reception, outperformed the buzz, of which there was none. Also, I think outperformed the expectations of the company for that candle. I really think it did. And performed much better, but was kind of in the same category as that new citrus. It wasn't Citrus Grove, but it was like Winter Orange Grove, or I can't remember what it was. That candle did not do well, and it was just not a successful fragrance. It was not firing. It was just a very weak candle in almost every category, including just fragrance profile. But the Goldenberry Mistletoe was great. Sidebar. I'm in this candle Facebook group. It's like a general Facebook group that does candles, but especially Bath & Body Works and a lot of other things. And somebody posted the new package for Goldenberry Mistletoe, which I have seen in stores now. I saw it originally online. Somebody teased it from a test store. And it was a raised eyebrow moment for me, no question. I'm like, what kind of atrocity is that? Now that I've seen it in store, it's actually growing on me. Here is, if you have not experienced it yet, here is I think it's a vintage-esque kind of package for Goldenberry Mistletoe this year. And it is ugly as sin, it really is. And I noticed that from the beginning online. And it did not have great packaging last year either. Like I said, the company just it was very late in the holiday season. They just kind of like put it out there. All the labels were extremely crooked, extremely. The label looked cheap. It kind of looked like the new Forever Red candle. It was just like, this was an afterthought if there ever was one, right? So anyway, I don't know. There's a lot more thought and care that has gone into this new packaging. That is for sure. But just as ugly as last year's. Anyway, somebody posted it on the Facebook group and they're like, what the actual fuck is this candle? And they were like, I like Goldenberry Mistletoe. I wanted to burn it, but there is no way I'm bringing this into my house. And then everybody just dragged it in the comments. And I think I was the only one that was like, it's growing on me. Spoiler alert, I will be bringing this home at some point. Not only because it's a great little holiday fragrance, it's not brilliant, it's not going to change your life. It definitely has a cliched Bath & Body Works kind of body care element to it, but it's a really nice candle and it performed above average last year. It deserves to come out every year. I don't know that Bath & Body Works has an enormous spate of like great holiday candles. So I think the bar is low enough for that candle to come out every year. It's impressive that it was like a citrus and spruce kind of candle that actually was unique. There was nothing else in the catalog like it in 2023. We still don't have it. I mean, it's amazing that it's such a classic and basic kind of scent profile for the holidays, and it was still different than anything that Bath & Body Works did in their collection and performed really well. So anyway, I'm a huge fan of Goldenberry Mistletoe. It's not in my like holiday hall of fame or anything, but I think for the price point, and I think it's just a really decent holiday candle. That packaging though, man, a lot of companies are doing kind of a vintage Christmas this year. This like almost intentionally kind of like leans into the ugliness. Like it's like one of those, it's not just vintage, it's not cute vintage, it's not even nostalgic vintage, it's like ugly vintage, like straight up ugly, tacky, cheap, classless vintage. It's in the same category of like, you know, that like woman's leg lamp from like the Christmas Story. It's like that level of garish and not good. You know what it is? It's like an ugly sweater kind of Christmas candle. You know what I mean? It's just leaning into like the ugliness of this candle, but in such an intentional way that it kind of almost makes you smile and makes it okay. Actually, now since we've had 2 years of bad marketing and just terrible like graphics now for Goldenberry Mistletoe, wouldn't it be funny actually if they had a candle that they brought out every holiday season that was like the ugly sweater candle and was just like every year everybody waited for it, like what is Goldenberry Mistletoe gonna look like this year, you know? It's like the opposite of like the Starbucks red cups or something. It's like, what are they doing? When is it coming out? You know? And then Bath & Body Works, Freudian slip, Bath & Body Works would be like, by popular demand, according to the tradition, this is your 7th edition, Goldenberry Mistletoe. And then it's like, how have we outdone ourselves? What is it gonna look like this year, you know? And it'll just be that one candle that's just so intentionally, disturbingly, like, jarring, right? All right, anyway, close parentheses. Close parentheses on that, because that has nothing to do with the candles that we're reviewing today. This one came out in the same collection as that, I think. No, it was at the same time as that one. The Goldenberry Mistletoe is its own like cheap ass thing off to the side. Anyway, Birchwood Orchard, I love this candle and I bought backups of it when it clearanced out. I think this is a repackage of what originally was a neutrals candle under the name Applewood and Clove, I think, or something like that. It was really nice. I honestly don't know why in such short order they repackaged it the next year. I mean, Applewood and Clove just must not have done well, and they assumed it was because of the packaging. I don't think it's because of the packaging. I think it just didn't perform well or something. By the way, Kent mentioned in one of his candle channel, he's like, where are the neutrals candles? I agree. Where are the neutrals candles? Are people over them now? You know I love that neutrals aesthetic. But yeah, it's been a hot minute. We didn't really get any fall candles to speak of. Oh, we did. We had the spiced lemon candle. Oh, that was fantastic. And that was in the neutrals line. Okay, so forgive me, I misspoke. We did have an early fall wave. Again, it was like in June, where we had a few fall candles, like 4 in that neutrals line, but then we haven't seen any for holidays yet, you know? I hope they're not dropping the ball on that neutrals line because I really like it, and they've actually improved the performance on them this year, because up to this year, those candles have been atrocious in terms of performance. This year, they've performed well, so they have changed something in the way that they're doing those. So I would hate to see it go away now, just when they fix something, you know? All right, so Birchwood Orchard, white birch trees, fresh apples, and a hint of clove. I love this one though. This one, I mean, it's definitely, this is a much more stripped down candle, this Kringle candle. It's more stripped down, whereas this one is more fruity, more musky, less woody than musky. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's not only apple here, but I think also a good amount of some sort of red, either a red berry or a plum note possibly, because the fragrance just goes, it is apple, but it's kind of an apple berry mix that leans very purple, for lack of a better term. So I'm thinking like a blackberry, a plum. I don't think it's quite tart enough for a currant, but it's kind of heading in that direction. Great winter fruits. And there is a spice mixture that almost goes Michael's Craft Store, but doesn't quite. There's something a little bit more mysterious and lush about this candle than the Bourbon Apple and Oud, which is much more straightforward, much more linear. This one is sexier, I think, in a lot of ways. I love this candle. I really do. This one should have come out this year. Plagued with some performance issues, but man, that's a fantastic fragrance. And I love and adore this one, whereas I kind of just like the Bourbon Apple and Oud. I would have loved a bourbon note. I really would have. I think that would have taken this candle like to the next level, but I'm happy with it as it is. And I think given that it doesn't have a heavy amount of musk, the way that like Birchwood Orange does, for instance, or Birchwood Orchard does, for instance, that you could burn and should burn this candle relatively high in the season. So more like a September kind of candle for Bourbon Apple and Oud. Yeah, I would repurchase this one. Like I said, if it was on a good sale, and I think I would try to get it in the medium because I like that aesthetic a little bit better, and just kind of hope and pray and fingers crossed about the performance on it. Kringle needs to work out the performance issues. They really do, but they need to work out their strength and throw issues primarily. While these candles burn very clean, puny wicks are not unheard of, so there is that. And it doesn't help, or it rather reinforces the problem, which is strength and throw when you have those puny wicks or wicks that burn really, really low. These candles are just they're not hitting, they're not landing the way that they need to. And I think it is, if not 100%, the soy formula, I would say that that's like the major problem of this. I really wanted the soy formula to work. I was skeptical from the top, but I was curious and I was hopeful. This was about 1.5 or 2 years ago. I am confident in being able to say that I do think that this was a big mistake, and I think that it needs, if it can't be rolled back, they've got to go back to the drawing board with this formula. They just do. And I personally think that they can't do 100% soy. Like I said, there are very few major candle companies that do 100% soy. And there is a reason for that. There's a reason for that. All right, but there you have it. Bourbon Apple and Oud. I liked it. Just be prepared for a variable and erratic strength throw experience from it. If you get that kind of chemical note right from the top, at least for my candle, it did not carry through for the rest of the candle, so don't worry too much about it. Obviously, would love to see that not happen at all, and I don't know why it kind of gave that off at the top. But yeah, it's a really lovely fragrance, and unlike the warm and toasty candle, really just a very pleasing and beautiful kind of fragrance, while also being a little bit stripped down and austere at the same time. So I'm a fan. And I'm a fan of this kind of apple profile. I believe it's on sale right now, but I don't know that it's a great sale. So just keep your eye on it if this is the kind of thing that you like. And, maybe you could pick it up in the wax melts. Try the wax melts. That might be a really good way to experience it as well. I might do that too. If the wax melts go on sale, I might grab some of those because I've been doing wax melts more often here. So I might grab those because those actually do tend to project pretty well, and you don't have to worry about the other variables of like wicks not being a certain way or whatever, and they do seem to carry quite a bit in terms of strength and throw, albeit for a very short period of time. I've been burning some or melting some Kringle wax melts, and they vary, but they tend to melt very loud and then like a shooting star kind of be done sometimes in less than 24 hours. So there is that as well. Pros and cons to those wax melts. All right, my friends, thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to link down below the Bourbon Apple and Oud, and just for fun, I'm going to link the new Goldenberry Mistletoe. Happy Halloween. Happy ugly Christmas day for you. Ugly Christmas sweater. Thanks so much. I will try to do October empties for Thursday, latest Friday, which is November 1st. And then it's coffee week. Then we're on to coffee week. I think I've got about 10 coffee candles. We're going to talk about them. Catch you guys in the next one. Thanks so much.